If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need in one place. In fact, this season of Millennial and Pregnant was produced and hosted on Anchor. Here's what I love about it. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. This made it easier for me to edit my episodes on the go. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hi, I'm Fatima.
I'm Brian, and you're listening to Millennial and Pregnant.
As we begin our journey through our first pregnancy, we wanted to share our experience. We pre-recorded episodes for this close-ended series. Spoiler alert, it ends with us having a baby.
And if you're looking to get pregnant, are pregnant, or just want to have a good laugh with us, then this podcast is for you.
We understand that every pregnancy is unique and has its own story. Here's ours. Welcome back. It's been 3 months since our last episode. And the last episode we filmed was the day before. Yes, this camera's. The last episode we recorded was the day before I went into labor.
Mm-hmm. I know.
So we're going to be wrapping up this series, over next 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Kind of discussing our experiences over the last 3 months. So let's get started.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening so far. We really appreciate it. And Fatima, how are you feeling?
So I'm no longer pregnant. Yay! I'm feeling slightly back to my old self, although I think that my old self has disappeared. Is no longer Fatima prior to pregnancy, is no longer here. But physically, I'm feeling a lot better. Still a little sleep deprived, which we'll get into a little bit more. But I'm getting more sleep. But I'm feeling great.
Yeah, and I do have to say you've been doing an amazing job. I have so much respect now for parents in general, but especially for moms. And you're doing
I think
an amazing job.
I think you're doing an amazing job as well.
You don't have to balance out the compliment. I was really complimenting you.
But no, I tell you that all the time as well. I think that, I can only do a good job if I have a good partner next to me, helping me out, making sure that I'm taking care of myself and not just the baby. Mm-hmm. So Brian is definitely a constant reminder of that one, because I do tend to sacrifice a lot more than I should. Mm-hmm. You can't pour from an empty glass is what he tends to tell me.
Didn't Jesus do that?
Yeah, I'm not Jesus.
But yeah, I mean, let's talk about, so the day that we went into the hospital was Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember I woke up that morning because I'm like, it's Mother's Day. Fatima's gonna be a mom. I should make her a nice breakfast. So I made you home fries and eggs. Home
fries, eggs, and
I just remember the home fries.
Did we make like cinnamon?
Because that's what we posted to the blog.
There's something sweet.
I think I made a cinnamon roll. Whatever. So I got up early. I made breakfast for you and gave it to you. We came into the living room, sat on the couch, made you eat.
Yeah, well, at first I'm laying in the bed, and that last episode we recorded, we kind of was feeling antsy about whether we were actually going to give birth. And
that's right. Yeah, because your mucus plug.
Yes, please remind me about that. Later on in that day, I was feeling these constant, weird feelings, which I was assuming it was contractions, just based off of what the internet was telling me how contractions feel. So I woke up the next morning and they were kind of gone. I didn't really feel them, or I was able to sleep through it. I didn't wake up in the middle of the night going into labor. So I'm just kind of chilling on the bed, reading some text messages as everyone's messaging me Happy Mother's Day. And I'm like, it's not Mother's Day. I mean, I'm not a mother yet. So you don't need to say Happy Mother's Day to me, or at least say happy, almost Mother's Day to you. So I'm like, everyone's like jinxing me. I'm not a mother yet, but I just was saying thank you. And then Brian then I get a text message from Brian, and he's like, breakfast is ready. I guess he didn't want to walk in it and see that or wake me up if I was still sleeping, which I appreciated. So I got the text message, and
Only
then,
like 5 feet away from
yeah.
it.
But I got the text message as I was reading through all the other Happy Mother's Day text messages, and I came out here, and Brian had made me a nice breakfast. And I'm sitting on the couch eating it, and
Actually, you're sitting in the same spot.
kind of the same spot. And I get up to go use the restroom after I was done eating, and Brian's like, did you spill something? Meanwhile, I didn't even think I even had anything to drink, or, I guess maybe he thought maybe I spilled some of my food, and I said no.
And I was also, for the record, just being polite. And like,
yeah, he knew.
And I didn't think I believed what was happening.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think she spilled something. But I think I know what that is.
I know. I looked down at the couch, and I'm like, oh. No, I think that looks like more like water. So, and then I feel myself, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm a little wet. So we decided to call my doctor. So I called my doctor and said, okay, this is what I've been experiencing. So he had suggested that he wasn't quite convinced that it was my water breaking quite yet. So he said, you know what, just go to the hospital and have them check you out. 'Cause my doctor's always, being cautious about stuff like that. He doesn't want to say no, and then I'm in labor and giving birth on my kitchen
in the shower
floor. Yeah, or in the shower. So
where there's a drain.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to the doctor's, and so I take a shower because I was like, I just woken up, like I said before. So I was like, I'm not going to this hospital dirty. So I take a shower, still in disbelief. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to give birth yet. I don't think it's time. So then I get out the shower. I'm all ready. Brian's got ready as well. I'm like, should we take our hospital bag? And you look at me and you're like, yep.
Because in my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, we're having a baby today.
Yeah. Here I am. I'm like, no, it's not happening. But I do remember telling myself in the shower, I was like, okay, if today's the day that it happens, then today's the day that it happens. I think it just still didn't click for me yet. So we call our Uber and we head over to the hospital. And
as I was making breakfast, we made home fries for the blog, and I was taking a bunch of photos of like all these different things. So we left the apartment in such a mess.
Oh my God.
That was killing me, because I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna have to come home to this mess.
Yep.
That's all I could think about. And then also thinking, oh my God, we're also bringing a baby home to this mess.
I'm like, come on, priorities here. So, we have the whole birth story up on the blog, but pretty much we get there, they check me, they're still not convinced that it looks like my water's still intact. Turns out I had a high leak, whatever it's called. Anyway, my water, it
happened.
Yes, it happened. Before you know it, we get
like
there.
8 hours later.
We're there for an hour. They then convinced that I'm going into labor. They get me to the delivery room, and then, by 7 o'clock that night, we had a baby.
Yeah. So all within 8 hours.
Yes.
We got to the hospital, and then Liam arrived.
Yeah.
And
that was...
wow.
My mom has told me that I'm going to forget about the pain. I don't think it's been enough time. I think I still remember every feeling that I was feeling.
Every contraction.
Yes. And how quickly it progressed. And before in my head, I was saying, I heard people first pregnancies, they're in labor for 34 minutes or 34 minutes, 34 hours, 34 minutes. One wishes. It felt like 34 minutes. But I thought maybe the next day I'm just here and they're going to hold me and I'm going to be in labor for 20 hours. Nope.
Yeah. Like when they brought us to the labor delivery room, that was when I was like, oh my God, it's happening. And at one point, casually they were checking it. They're like, okay, now it's time to push. And I'm like, oh my God. Meanwhile, I'm stone faced, but no one could see me. No one could see my reaction on the outside. But I was thinking, oh my God, this is for real. We're pushing now.
Are you still kind of traumatized by the whole experience?
No. It's just because everyone was so calm and okay, this is next. Okay, now we're gonna push. It just is so second nature to them.
Yeah.
That for us, it's oh.
Shout out to my nurse Helen, who's also a midwife. Amazing. I loved her. She made my besides having my mom and Brian there. She made my birth experience amazing. And I couldn't have thanked her more. I want to go back and find her just to like give her a hug or have her like, you know, hold Liam or something.
Mm-hmm. When, like right after he was born, what was your reaction? Like, what were you thinking? You just looked so happy, but you also still were like, is this my baby?
No. I knew it was my baby. I think I was still kind of shocked that it happened on that day.
Yeah.
I thought I had a little bit more time. It was almost surreal and surreal is a good word. Yeah. It was a feeling that I can't really quite describe, but I was happy. I was anxious. I don't think at that very moment I was anxious. I was just really, really happy and so tired. It's like my body had gone through this ordeal for how many hours, and then afterwards, when my sisters, they went and got me a turkey sandwich because that's what I was craving. Because I didn't eat any cold cuts throughout my entire pregnancy because of, you know, the germs and stuff that, you know, is not harmful for us but can be harmful for your baby, blah 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 blah. You can read up on why you shouldn't eat cold cuts when you're pregnant. So I didn't have it, and I love turkey and cheese sandwiches. And we have a place around the corner, and Brian would get his sandwiches, and I'm like, oof, I want one so bad, but I can't give this to my baby. So my sisters went out and they got me a turkey sandwich for my first meal after I had given birth. So I'm eating it, and I turned to my sister. I'm like, you're gonna really have to feed me this sandwich. I was so tired. I could barely
chew it for me.
I could barely like lift my arm up to
feed it to me like a bird.
Eat it. I did manage to lift my arm up, and I did manage to eat it, but it took a while. So yeah, it was really draining. So if anyone who is thinking about how it's gonna feel right after you give birth, you're gonna feel so tired. You'll be I was on the high like right when he came out, but then once that stopped and the room cleared and he was all swaddled up, I was like, okay, I can go to sleep now.
I know.
But then once you had to leave because he couldn't stay over, I was wired. I couldn't sleep, and then before you know it, they were bringing him in so that he can feed. So it was just kind of this weird, I'm tired, but I couldn't sleep kind of thing. So, but it was great. And you, how did you feel?
How did I feel? I don't know if you saw me, but so he came out, they handed him to you. They put him on your chest. And then there are 3 different doctors, a pediatrician and 2 others that kind of like patted him all off. And I was in the way, so I took a step back, and I just started, because I was so emotionless on the outside the whole day. I just started crying.
I did see you cry.
It was like such happy tears. I was just like, all these emotions just finally boiled out of me, and I was just so happy. I was like, oh my god, this happened.
Yeah. So you're there.
I'm standing there crying while all these doctors are like flooding you and Liam.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my god. I was like, my job is over. I don't have to be strong for 2 anymore.
Yeah, exactly. No, Brian was like my target. I was like looking at him like through every contraction. I was just like eyeing him. It was just, you know, you were like my support during the entire time, and when I was pushing, that's like you were like my focus area. I needed to have something to focus on. And so if you were like crumbling, I was like, that wouldn't have felt too good. So you did stay. I don't remember you kind of showing that you were scared. If you were scared or anxious or whatever feelings, you kind of just, hey, I'm just gonna just be here as like literally a rock.
Yeah, like there and then, not to get sidetracked, but we did these weird like reports at work where they would show you, this is like your 4 quadrants of whatever, and it's like emotion, planning, blah 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 blah. And then they show you, in a high stress situation, here's how your 4 quadrants change. And they all like went up to like the planning mode. And so, like, that was me the whole time. Yeah. Like, here we go. We got to go get the bag. Here we go. Blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And then once it's over, I was just like.
Then you were done. You're like, no need to. I need to get out. Exactly.
But then, you know, then we had to come home.
Yeah.
And that was so weird, rolling him out in his stroller out of the hospital. I'm like, did anyone see us? We're taking this baby. And then you get outside and you think like you're famous. You're like trying to hide from people's gazes.
Or you're
They're
like, they definitely know that I just gave birth.
Yeah, like, did they just give, is that their baby? And you think everyone is staring at you. Meanwhile, they don't give a shit about, like, the random people on the street.
Especially in New York City.
But you're standing there, and I was like, oh my God, people are looking at us like we're famous. But then, it was so easy. The car seat, we have the Duna. It's amazing. Sponsored, by the way. It was so easy to put into the Uber.
Plug.
So it was absolutely so easy. I was so happy that it went pretty smoothly getting into the car, coming home, and then we got back into our apartment, and it was kind of a relief. It was nice to be in our own element out of that hospital vibe, which was nice feeling. I just remember coming into the living room and then kind of like just staring at Liam sleeping in the car seat, and I was like, so what do we do now?
Like, do we put him down? Do we hold him? I don't think I put him down for the first 6 weeks of life. Yeah. So we held him. I think we went to go put him down in the crib, and he was like, nope. Not having it. No. I want to be held. And, we were on such a high, so we didn't really mind with holding him. So we held him.
I think those first 10 days, for at least in my point of view, or like such a high, like, oh my God, like I can stay up 24 hours. This is amazing.
I'm so happy I can stare at his face.
Yeah, I'm looking
all the
at
time.
You. My arms are super strong for holding you 24 hours a day. And after the 10th day, I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
I think then it just kind of like
then it hit you.
In, yeah. Which,
or actually that was the first week.
Which kind of brings you into like, okay, well, what are some of the things that, we didn't quite know about?
Yeah.
When we thought about, okay, well, we prepared so much with the pregnancy and what we should do and the right things to do. And then, I think I kind of forgot, okay, well, when the baby comes, what do we do? Or how am I going to feel once I give birth? Okay, here's pregnancy. How will it be afterwards?
Right.
And some of the biggest thing that I would have to say is just like the recovery of it. So, obviously your body's going through so much, and then you get home and you're like, wow, I just pushed this baby out. Like, what are some of the things that I'm going to have to deal with? And I'll just tell you, ladies, like the whole process of going to the restroom is quite an ordeal. It's like a 10-minute task I had. You have your, which everyone was, right before we gave birth, when did Kate Middleton give birth before I did? Or
yeah,
well, everyone always kept
April.
saying like, okay, she's walking out and she's in this dress and she looks all put together, and then like meanwhile she probably has several pads on, an ice pad on, hemorrhoid cream and all this other stuff being packed in or hidden by this dress. And I was like, oh wow, that seems like intense. And I read all the kits and how we came up with our hospital bag. I knew I had to get some of that stuff, so I'm like, but it didn't quite register, like, okay, all that stuff I have to put on every time I use the restroom. And so that was intense, and just feeling super tired, and your hormones kind of going crazy, and then the no sleeping. It was quite a whirlwind, and I think if anyone said anything to me, I think I was ready to like probably burst into tears. I was just like, if anyone was like mean or said anything to me that I quite didn't like, I think I just wanted to just react with like tears.
And some days it was like, oh, Fatima, there's breakfast, and it's like, no.
Yeah, I'm
like, oh my God.
I think so.
Not quite. I was just kidding.
And which I'm probably was like that. I'm not going to deny it. But when right before we were leaving the hospital, and our nurse who was with us for like the couple of days,
she was great.
She was amazing. Sharon, I believe her name was. So a big thing, which we're going to probably discuss in another episode, is like breastfeeding and the struggles I went through with breastfeeding, at least in the first couple of days. I can't say that I had a huge struggle afterwards. There are still some ups and downs even till this day. But one thing that people don't tell you is that your milk supply doesn't quite come in until, a couple, 2 to 3 days, maybe even more, depending on how old you are, blah, 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 blah. There is like that liquid gold. It starts with a
colostrum.
C. I'll make sure I know when we talk about it more that you can feed your baby, and it's a little bit, and their stomachs are pretty tiny, and that's sufficient enough. But in your head, you're probably like, do I have, is it in there? What's happening? Like you have so many things going on in your head. You want to make sure that your baby is being fed, and you're not quite certain if that's happening. And so on the second night, on the second night, because we were leaving the next day, the nurse had said, okay, Liam kept falling asleep. She's like, okay, he's probably going to wake up on this, finally wake up and realize he's out of the wound and he's going to want to eat. And if he doesn't quite get his latch right, we'll talk about that more. It's like, it's going to probably be a little bit rough. So I was like, huh? Okay. So I knew she had prepared me, the lactation nurse there. So I knew what to expect, but I knew to expect something. So they come, they bring me Liam. Liam's crying and I can't quite calm him down. He's not latching. And so, you know, I decided that I was going to supplement with formula just to make myself feel better that he had gotten, you know, and at that time they're only able to drink about 1.5 ounces, I think, or even just actually less than that. Milliliters? It's actually less than that. Yeah.
30 milliliters. That's right.
So I gave that to him and it made me feel a little bit better. But at the same time, I felt so upset because I almost felt like, oh my God, I wanted to breastfeed and I just gave up so easily. It's only day 2 and I gave up. And so I wish I would have read a little bit more about the fact that this could be, you know, if I would have prepared, like, yes, I'm just going to supplement in the beginning, try and give him the first, you know, part of it, which he was fine right after we gave birth. He latched perfectly. But maybe he's not going to do it so much because he's still sleepy and he's not able to figure it out yet. So and then the next morning, I think I texted Brian and the next morning I said, you know, can you please come as soon as possible? So here he's rushing to the hospital because I was just so like emotional. And then the nurse said something to me about, I guess she saw that I hadn't cried or anything like that, but I just seemed kind of off. And she's like, you know, is everything okay? And then that's when I was like, oh my God. And I just like burst out tears. Now I do not cry in front of people. I'm one of those, I'm going to go home, go into my bathroom and cry by myself. I'm one of those people. I do not like crying in front of people. So, but I couldn't hold it back. And it was like so unlike me. I just couldn't. The tears was just coming down. It was my hormones and
being tired.
Yes, and being tired. And, you know, I'm almost back to normal, right?
Yeah, you are. You are.
But that was the biggest thing is the recovery and just how much my hormones were going to be fluctuating, the struggles with breastfeeding and formula feed and just not getting enough sleep.
Not getting sleep. And the one thing about sleep is everyone would tell me like, oh my God, they're going to sleep all the time. They're going to sleep all the time. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess I'll be able to sleep all the time. Yes, he would sleep all day, but when it came to the nighttime, he did not want to sleep. Or me, you know, I had to adjust my sleep to go with his sleep in like the first 4 to 6 weeks. And so I wish I mentally prepared because I'm like, oh, he's gonna sleep all the time. Oh, he's gonna sleep all the time during the day, all the time in my arms. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was the other thing. You know,
not that I thought this was going to be easy from the beginning.
I just didn't know how much he was going to dislike his crib as much as he did. And with babies and their startle reflux.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, like when you put them down and they feel like they're falling and that kind of wakes them up. So he had that really bad. And so.
He was Harry Houdini in every swaddle we gave him.
Swaddles. He would, you know, I think it was like the second night we had him home. Or maybe it was the first night when you swaddled him out really well. Yeah. And he slept for like 3 hours. Yeah. That was amazing. But after that, he just kept escaping from it. I don't know what happened. I think he started to wake up a little bit more. Yeah. He's like, okay, I'm up. I could do this. I can move my arm a little bit more. There's more room outside here than in the wound. Yeah. So that was like really, really big.
Yeah. And because we were so sleep deprived, it helped not, you know, from the get-go, we said, you know, we're just going to, because we read online a bunch of other tips and whatnot, and everyone was like, you know what, try not to, you know, limit your visitors. So we were like, okay, for the first 4 to 6 weeks, we're just going to limit visitors to who we want to be around, or just limit the people coming into the house, whether that be family and
and especially if you're a new mom and you don't feel like you're going to hurt anyone's feelings. I think a lot of people understood. Even our friends didn't reach out until probably a month and a half. They really were good with like giving us our space and making sure that we were recovering and everything else. Don't feel like you need to, you know, invite your whole extended family. A lot of people understand that like you need that time to bond. And even for the people who are having their second or third child, then that changes your family dynamic a lot. So you want to make sure that you're figuring that out for yourself before you start introducing so many visitors. And for any of the visitors who are listening, yes, it's great that, you hold the baby when, maybe they can do something while you're holding the baby. But if you can offer to do something that's like clean their bathroom, cook them a meal or anything else, if you are some of the lucky few people to come, make sure you're doing something to help the parents, holding the baby. Yes, that's great. But even so, like, even if they're able to hold the baby and then something else is getting done, because they need that bonding time just as much as, probably more than you do. So doing those things, if you are the people that are coming by, are really, really helpful. And I think that we got lucky.
Yeah, everyone who's come by was fantastic.
Yeah, we had like amazing friends sending us seamless gift cards to order dinner, to flowers.
Bringing dinner to the hospital.
Yeah, bringing dinner
nice.
to the hospital, to flowers, because people know I love me some flowers, but just to brighten up the apartment, it was great. I think we got lucky with the crowd that we had. I was reading some stories, and there's some horror stories about people just being just horrible guests, like not just your normal people who just are annoying to have over, but then on top of that, having a kid and some of the things that they would say and do and criticize. Yeah. So I think,
don't be afraid to do that. I think that was the best decision.
Yes.
That helped us and helped you and I and just getting used to Liam in our lives. Like, it's such a huge adjustment.
And I'm like, so I say, okay, people help you clean and stuff, but I'm kind of like a crazy person where I will like, even when I was, going through my recovery, I still clean the apartment.
And I let you because I knew it helped you.
But because I just something that my mom has instilled in me, I can't have someone come over to my house with a dirty toilet with like stuff like hanging all around and everything else. So like, luckily we spent most of our time sitting down holding Liam, so the apartment wasn't too messy when people came. Right. But I can't just have people come over and be messy. People like, they just need help them clean and stuff. No. I'm one of those weird people. So it's okay if you're like me. But something that if you feel like there's someone who's you feel a little more comfortable showing them your mess, have them come over and help you clean, bring you some dinner.
Exactly. And letting you clean was my way of helping you recover. And I think what made it work, reliever. I think those are some of the things that made it work between us, being able to split time with him, giving each other rest. I think it's amazing that, for one, my company has an amazing parental leave, and I'm going to be going back in just a few weeks.
It's so important.
It's fantastic for.
It's just as important for moms and dads, and to have both parents there at the same time. One, and to give dads an opportunity to bond and have that experience with their child. There's some people who are offered it and don't take it. Which I think is just so stupid.
I know.
But maybe it's just old fashioned in their views of, woman takes care of that and I'll handle the fun stuff when they have like little league or something like that. But you wanted to be involved from the start, which was great. A reason why I picked you. Because I knew that he would want to be
my human.
Yes, I picked him as my lobster to kind of go through life with, because it helps to have someone there and to balance you out. And, sometimes all you have is a baby that don't really talk to you right back. So sometimes it's a sanity check when you have someone there and you're talking. It might just be you're talking just about the baby and nothing else, because that's all that's going on in your life that's new.
Like we went out to lunch a couple weeks ago and left the baby here with someone and brought the monitor with us. Yes. He was fine. And we were at lunch and we're like, oh, Liam, oh, look, Mama, did you see what he did? Cute. Yeah. And I was like, Pat, we have to stop talking about it.
And like the little things he do. He like drooled today.
I know.
He swatted that toy. Yay, he's tracking the toy. All those like little milestones that they have you track. But yeah, so we had to stop ourselves.
Yeah. But I think we've made a good team in these last, in the first month.
I did blow up right away. I did get mad at you a couple of times. I'm sure you got mad at me.
And I had a few. I had two lash outs at you. I was short with you, and I immediately regretted it because I'm like, she's going through a lot more than I am. But it's 3:30 in the morning. Don't tell me how to do something right.
I know. And then I yelled back at him, and then he apologized. The way it should go.
Exactly. But yeah, I think from the get-go, because we were able to split everything up and taking on, and me telling you to go outside.
Yes, yeah. You know, because with breastfeeding
It's
too,
helpful.
because like all I felt like I was doing was just breastfeeding. So, you know, because I was so tired doing that, Brian would, you know, take him afterwards and make sure he was burped, change his diaper, and do the little things, because in the first few weeks I was breastfeeding around the clock.
Yeah.
So
Felt like
Brian changed like all the diapers. And having a boy in the first 2 weeks, as soon as the air hits, he pees. That's all he does is he pees. I can't tell you how many onesies we went through because Brian just had to keep changing it because he couldn't catch it soon enough.
Oh my God.
So like he dealt with that, and he would cry bloody murder also. It's just because poor
he's
guy.
recovering.
Yeah, because he's
himself.
recovering. So Brian dealt with that. So every time he would go into the room and change, I'm like, oh, I felt so bad for not just Liam, but for Brian too, because he was dealing with that. But, you know, it was something to take the stress off of me and having to worry about changing his bandage and all that other good stuff, changing his shirt. So thank you.
You're welcome. And and just one last thing on that, like part of like changing a baby, a newborn is like, I feel like I had to be so gentle.
It was giving
even like with
surgery.
our niece and niece and nephews, the same thing, but it's different with your own kid. I felt like I didn't have to be as fragile by like grabbing his arm and, you know, pulling it through. I don't feel like I have to be so fragile with him, and it was so weird because with, you know, changing, you know, the nephews like into like a new onesie, I was like, oh, give me your hand, no, give me your hand, and for him, I'm just like, oh, come here.
without yanking him,
without yanking his arm out of his socket. But yeah, I think we're doing good.
Yes,
together.
We've been doing good. I think we'll continue to do good. We're doing our best, and that's all that we can ask for.
Yeah.
And so you had said something you had read, you know, if you're worried about that you're being a bad parent, not doing something right, then you're actually being a good parent, because bad parents don't worry.
Bad parents don't worry about being good parents.
Yes, thank you. I was looking
in a nutshell. It's in a nutshell.
Yeah, so that was like our first experience with Liam, and you know, the next episode we want to talk.
We're going to talk about your breastfeeding experience. And then we'll wrap everything up at the end with some more sleep deprivation, because I think we've talked a long time already.
I'm actually tired right now. I think I'm going to go to
bed. We're exhausted. He's sleeping right now, so we're trying to be very quiet. And just some, you know, other things to cover in the last 2 to 3 months will be our last episode of the series. So we do appreciate you sticking with us, and we hope you listen next week.
All right. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Millennial and Pregnant.
Since you made it this far, share our series with a friend.
To follow our journey in real time, head over to liliesandloafers.com.